It's Two on the Aisle with me, Charles Gross, and Leslie Hoban Blake. Tonight, reviews of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, The Little Foxes, Bandstand, The Lightning Thief, the Percy Jackson musical, and The Glass Menagerie. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Two on the Aisle. Hi, Leslie.
Hi, Charlie. Well, it's spring, but you wouldn't know it from the scarf and the coat that I'm wearing. I'm freezing.
Yes. But she has some warm feelings for some of the shows we've seen.
Yes, I do.
Or do you?
Well, or do I? Yes.
Now, chocolate should make you feel warm. This is Broadway's second Roald Dahl musical.
Roald Dahl, yeah.
Roald Dahl. Unless you count Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, which he did the screenplay for, but I don't think he didn't have anything to do with the musical, so I don't think that really counts. Of course, there was Matilda, which was brilliant. And this is Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which is certainly much more well-known than Matilda, but not quite as brilliant on stage. Now, the best thing about this is Christian Boyle.
He's very good. He's really wonderful.
Well,
he seems to have been born to play this role.
Yes. And more than Gene Wilder or Johnny Depp, his Willy Wonka is what I always imagined him to be. Score is
a sad, lonely, depressed.
Well, but not
looking for something.
Looking for something, yes, but that's not. But also enthusiastic, excited. You know, he when somebody does something wrong in the factory and doesn't listen to him, he gets upset. Right. But he also can put a good spin on it.
Yeah.
Now, what they have,
reverse that.
Right. Now, this is, of course, the story of a young man named Charlie Bucket, ridiculously poor, and he wins a gold ticket along with 4 other children to see the chocolate factory. They've taken a very interesting approach to this in that Willy Wonka develops a relationship with Charlie prior to his coming to the factory. He feels he's been shut up in his factory. He feels he has to get out into the world. So he opens a chocolate store in Charlie's neighborhood, and Charlie's always there. But here's the problem with that. It's a great idea, but they never build anything out of it. Whatever relationship it might as well not have been Wonka, because once Charlie gets to the factory,
it's non-existent.
He doesn't recognize Wonka, and the relationship Wonka doesn't acknowledge it.
And Wonka is very mean to him in those scenes.
Yes.
So you think it's going to mean something later, but it doesn't. It's not like, oh, I was mean to you to teach you a lesson or something.
Right.
By the way, we're showing a montage under what we're talking about, and the montage is what the play should have been. The montage is wonderful. It has scenes and, Oompa Loompas. And, by the way, the Oompa Loompas also steal the show. Oompa Loompas and Jackie help steal the show. And it's a brilliant piece of puppetry by Basil Twist, who has been around on the off-Broadway scene for so long, and now he's on Broadway. And it's a brilliant...
The Oompa Loompas are very nicely done. The interesting thing was, I think the first act, where we meet the other children, and they see, and they get, the story is 5 kids get a gold ticket. They get to go into a factory that no one's been into, no one's seen, for 20 years. And we meet each kid on their home turf. And that turns out to be a lot more interesting in some ways than what happens in the chocolate factory.
Well, the chocolate factory is not big enough. It's compartmentalized. So when you get to one part of it, it's within the whole framework. It's a small piece, as opposed to taking over the stage. It should pop open like a pop-up book. That's my feeling.
Charlie is played by a child. There are 4 different Charlies, as there were.
And their names are all Ryan something. I think that's very funny. Yes. Like you have to be named Ryan to get into the show.
Right. I think we got Jake Ryan Flynn, who was very good that night. The other children are all played by adults. Standout for me was Emma, and I know I'm going to get this wrong, Faethel.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Your guess is
and
as
she's
good as mine.
Veruca Salt, the spoiled rich girl. She's Russian in this case. And she has this beautiful Nutcracker-inspired ballet with a bunch of vicious squirrels who quite literally tear her apart. That's one problem I do have with this show. 2 of the kids get killed.
They do, and that's another thing. And I brought a young child to see it with me, and she thought it was wonderful. It didn't bother her the children got killed. It is a
Bothered me.
It is a kind of that's their payback for being selfish and grasping and wanting everything.
There's a payback in the book too, but they still don't get killed.
Look, Dahl is a very dark writer. Matilda is all about a little girl who's abused, and gets her own back, but she's abused by everybody. And that's a theme of his, children being abused. So, that sits with it. And the music was by Mark Shaman and his partner, Scott Whitman. And I'm just, and the direction is by Jack O'Brien, who should know better.
With a couple of songs from the
original,
Gene Wilder movie,
we did get some
which
of
hold
the
up
original
pretty well.
songs. Yes, and the audience went crazy over those songs. The Candyman, Imagination, the Oompa Loompa song. But I must say that...
and I have to say, unlike the Gene Wilder movie, they don't overdo the Oompa Loompa song, which gets really annoying after a while.
But and the Oompa Loompas are adorable because they're like little puppets that are this high, and they're in the front of normal-sized people who work on their knees, which dressed in black, like in the No Place. But I see that we're running out of time on this.
So we unfortunately did not get to see John Rubinstein.
We did.
We didn't. I didn't.
Oh, I did.
So
Sorry.
I saw Slade Smith, who I thought was very good.
Oh, John Rubinstein. I didn't realize it was John Rubinstein at first, and then I went, oh my God, it's John Rubinstein. Yes.
This is Charlie's grandfather who gets out of bed for the first time in 20 years.
But I don't think we have time to go through all the children.
We do not. All in all, enjoyable. I would give it 3.5.
My little friend, who's 11 years old, gave it awesome. I don't know what number that is. I would take her awesome.
That sounds like 4 at least.
I would take her awesome, and I would take it down to a 2.5. I will give it 3 because of Christian. No, I would give it 3 because of Christian. I was disappointed on so many different grounds. I saw one of an old play, a play that's back. It's about 80-something years old or 75 years old. Lillian Hellman's The Little Foxes, or maybe it's even older than that. I think it was from the 30s, and this play. I got to see Laura Linney at the library, and she talked about the fact that this was her idea to have both actresses, Laura Linney and Cynthia Nixon, who are friends, trade roles, because Laura Linney was offered the part of Regina, and she really wanted to play Birdie, and she knew that her friend Cynthia Nixon wanted to play Regina, and she said to Lynn Meadow, who was the head of Manhattan Theater Club, and Lynn Meadow ran with it, and God bless her for doing it, because we were offered, some of us were offered single tickets to see both shows, which is what I did.
Unfortunately, I was unable to do that.
But I have to tell you, and you'll see for yourself as you look at what we're showing you, they both bring such different qualities to the roles that you sort of go, well, yeah, that could be that, or yeah, of course that could be that way. Each of them is fine to really good in the role. I think everybody seems to feel that Laura Linney is a better Regina.
Well, she is the opening night Regina, so she'll be the one under consideration for awards.
They're both nominated, and one is supporting and one is leading. And Cynthia Nixon made a lovely Birdie. But there's a brittleness there's a womanliness about Laura Linney playing the role that makes her that much more...
Birdie. Or Regina.
That makes her that much more evil, because she seems so sweet, and yet underneath. And there's something about Cynthia Nixon that's very, very brittle, that makes Birdie feel like she's going to break, and at any moment, and that's very effective. Now, it's a wonderful cast. The story very quickly is there. An antebellum family. You have the 3 brothers. The men are played by 3 very well-known actors. Actually, Darren Goldstein is the youngest of the 3, and he's been on The Affair on Broadway, and he plays Oscar, who's the dodo of the family.
Yes.
Michael McKean.
The one who always gets dumped on by the other two.
Yes. Michael McKean plays Ben, who is the conniver of the family.
And the oldest and the leader.
Yes. And
this is about as far away from Lenny, from Laverne and Shirley as you can get, by the way.
I think so, but he's done so much more since then.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you've watched him on Better Call Saul, or even in Spinal Tap, he's done so much.
True.
And
he's on stage quite often.
On stage quite often. And then he thinks that he's in charge, but of course Regina thinks she's in charge, and then you have that thing going on. But the real male star of this show is Richard Thomas.
You think so?
I think so. I think in the small amount of time, and he's only there for a scene or two, the small amount of time that he's there, he runs the gamut of emotions. He has so many different colors to the piece that he's doing. And he is Regina's husband, and he has a bad heart. And you can imagine what happens there. And then
basically they're trying to make a deal with this Chicago investor to bring a factory into town. Regina at first tries to get more than her share from her brothers, and they realize that they're short because Regina's husband is sick of this family. They're connivers, they're cheaters,
and
especially the black population in the area. And Thomas, who is Regina's husband, is sick of it. He wants to put an end to it. He refuses to give the money, so they pull some shenanigans and get caught and have to move on from there. I will tell you, I really enjoy this production. I am very sorry I did not get to see.
I have to tell you that I
both
saw the play
casts.
back to back, matinee and evening. It's an old war horse. It stands up. It's
Very
a well-made,
very nicely, but
well-written.
because of this production, I don't think it's an incredibly great play, but this is an incredibly good
Beautifully
production.
cast, beautifully. Everything
Yes,
is lovely.
Beautifully.
The
I
set-
like Laura Linney. I like Cynthia Nixon. Again, I would love to see them in the roles reversed.
Directed by Daniel Sullivan, who received a Drama Desk and a Tony nomination for
Right.
this direction. Costumes by Jane Greenwood. I wore Jane Greenwood costumes in 1977 at the Alabama Shakespeare Festival. This woman has been around forever. And Scott Pask did this
Well, as has most of
incredible-
the cast.
Well, no, the younger players have not been around forever. Laura Linney's
But
50.
the other, Michael McKean and Richard Thomas, I
Well,
think
yes,
are older.
but okay, but I forgot now what I was going to say because I
Okay.
got interrupted.
Well, you're
Scott
going to
Pask-
give me your conclusion.
Scott, no, I want to say that Scott Pask did an incredible set where the front part of the set is the front room, but the dining room and the pass-through pantry are all real and working, so people are actually doing things behind them while these things are
We
being
have
done
to
in
move
front.
on.
Yes,
Your
we do.
conclusion.
Now, okay, my thing for this, I would give it 4.75.
I would give it
thought
4,
was-
certainly.
I thought it was brilliant.
I agree, and had I seen the both casts, I might go up for it.
Well-
Also, which version do you recommend?
There's so much to say for each of them. I'm just glad I got to see both. I don't have a favorite.
Okay.
If you could give them each the
so
same.
there isn't a bad night.
No, there was not a bad
Okay.
night at all.
All right.
Or afternoon.
And you will not have a bad night if you go to see this musical, Bandstand. Now, this takes place, this is in post-World War II.
1945.
Bunch of veterans, musicians.
And the boys are coming home. That's the
Yes,
tagline. It's
yes.
1945 and the boys are coming
Form a
home.
band. They team up with a war widow whose husband was in the band leader's platoon. And they're desperately trying to win a contest that they hope will propel them into the big time. Now, given that it's big band music, you would think they would be playing, old standards, but they do not. And the musical, with music by Richard Oberacker and the book and lyrics by Rob Taylor and
Richard Oberacker.
Yes, who also did the music. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Is wonderful and very enjoyable. There are times when the book can be a little loose,
Well,
but
you
it
left
has
out the most important part of this. All of these guys had PTSD.
Laura Osnes.
All of these, no, you left out what's wrong with these guys. Yes, they're trying to form a band. They can't get work. Some of them have a family, some of them don't have a family, but they're all suffering from shell shock, which is what it was called then. And now, of course, we call it post-traumatic PTSD. And you see it. Andy Blankenbuehler, who both directed and choreographed it, and he's Hamilton is all you have to say about him. And he's done so many other wonderful things as well. Shows it. He manifests PTSD by having guys hold on. Soldiers hold on to each of the guys. 3 and 4 of them are dragging after the people as they walk. I never saw anything quite like that in my life. It truly made me understand what it feels like.
That did not make as strong an impression on me as it did you.
For me. Because when I saw the Vietnam War ballet and Moving On, I left the theater years ago in that musical. I couldn't bear the thought of them making this into... But this really took on something head on that's still there today. I'm sorry. I just had to say that. I did interrupt you. I'm really sorry about that.
Yes,
Beth
you
Level did a
did.
wonderful job. Laura Osnes.
Oh,
And
she's
Corey-
wonderful. Every time I see her on the stage, I couldn't wait till she got up and sang. And the number she sings, what happens is they realize that winning the contest, they would lose the rights to their music. So they sing a song that they would never have otherwise performed on stage, knowing it'll just hit too hard.
Yes, it's a gut-wrenching
And it
song.
does.
Yes.
It's a highlight of the score.
Right, right. And Corey Cott, who's a brand new name to me, plays this conflicted leading man who's actually there's a secret to his life that's really
Yes.
big,
and it comes out.
And it comes out, but it's just. And all the guys play their own music. They all play their own instruments, they have a small band. Some of them are big bands, but they have a small band, and they're just a number of instruments. I didn't know what to expect when I went in here, and I was a little offended by the fact that there weren't any black soldiers coming back in 1945, and we've talked about this. but that wasn't the story they wanted to tell. So they chose not to have that
Right.
be an issue. Because if they're going to play jazz, you'd think you'd have a couple of black guys in there. But anyway, so they didn't. But
unfortunately, things were segregated in the 1940s.
Yes, they were. And David Corns,
and this does reflect that.
And David Corns, well,
but I think one of the nightclub owners is played by a black.
Yes,
actor.
he is, but he also plays a waiter in another scene. I mean, he's the only guy in it, so the only black guy in it. But anyway, David Corns, who's a wonderful designer, designed it.
Right.
But Andy Blankenbuehler, I'm not sure if he directed before. He always choreographed before, but his work on this is just fine.
It's very kinetic, very very busy. Again, if the book is occasionally slides over, the secret comes out. It has a dramatic effect, but not an overwhelming one.
Well, it's got to keep
maybe
moving.
that's
it's a musical,
and they kind of have to push things under the rug very quickly just to keep moving. So it's not as strong as it might be, but it's still a very.
I had no expectations at all. You walk in with some like I had for Charlie and the Chocolate. I had no expectations, and I was very pleased by this.
Yes. So was I.
Pleasantly surprised.
So was I.
So,
I had a very good time.
Yes.
And for what it is, it's no My Fair Lady, it's no Matilda.
No, right.
But I still want to give this production, I'm surprised at myself actually, 4 playbills.
I would give it 4.5. I thought the work was excellent, and I thought that some of the performances were even above that. I really did feel very strongly about some of this.
Now, a show I didn't think we were going to get to see, but...
Well, this show got nominated and was still running, and we were able to get into it. And it's also
nominated for the Drama Discs.
It's a kids' play. It's from the Theatre Works New York, which is part of Theatre Works USA. So I wasn't going to go see it. When I used to be on the Callaway, I had to see them, but I didn't have to see it now. And it's The Lightning Thief, the Percy Jackson musical, based on the books by Rick Riordan. There's a thing here about how many different he's had 4 #1 bestsellers, and there's a whole series. And this is a bunch of, and you'll forgive the expression because I don't like it, but that's what they're called, the half-blood children of the gods.
The Greek gods.
The Greek gods. So that one of them is, Percy, we find out, is Poseidon's kid.
Right.
And one of the girls is Athena's daughter. And another girl is Aphrodite's daughter.
And there's a goat boy.
Yeah, there's a goat boy. And there's a villain. One of the kids turns out to be a villain. He's related to...
Basically, Zeus's firebolt has been stolen. They think Hades is to blame. They think Poseidon is. And Percy, who has been living a normal life, except that he keeps getting kicked out of boarding schools, not knowing who he is. He's suddenly attacked by Furies, sent off to a special summer camp run by Diomedes, who's not happy to be there because Zeus has made him go on the wagon. So
Dionysius.
it's kind of
Dionysius. I didn't know
I'm sorry.
Okay, Dionysius, yes.
And it's a camp. Think of it as a Hogwarts summer camp. So sort of where they learn to fight in Greek tradition.
Well, something terrible happens to Percy at the beginning of the show. His mother, he has to fight a minotaur, and his mother gets taken away. He thinks she's killed.
Right.
And then there's a thing that goes on later on about that.
The bottom line is Percy has to go and find Zeus's lost firebolt.
Right.
Before a war breaks out between the big three, which is Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades. They assume Hades has it, and Ares figures into this too. I actually picked up the book, and I'm almost finished with it.
Really?
As a musical, it has to compress it. It stays fairly faithful to the story. One major difference, I think, is the winged shoes. Who was wearing them?
Well, Ares would have the winged shoes.
Right, but remember they get a pair of winged shoes.
Yes, but that's that was what.
But
anyway.
Percy doesn't act. Percy wears them in the show in the book. The goat boy Grover wears them.
I see. But Grover gives them to him. That's how that happened.
Well, no, he gets them from one of his bunkmates. Anyway, it's very enjoyable. I think if you like the books, you will like it. And I'm sure this musical is going to pop up in a lot of places.
Well, it's been around for a while. It started out as just a free show, and then it's become what it is. Is quite amazing. I just wanted to name some of the actors in it because I think they were quite good. Chris McCarroll plays Percy. Carrie Compare, and then these others play everybody.
Right.
Carrie Compare plays his mother and several others. I particularly liked Jonathan Raviv as Chiron, who's a centaur, and he was just charming as a centaur. I thought he did a lovely job. And George Salazar was Grover and Mr. D.
The goat boy.
We saw George Salazar. You don't remember this in Tick Tick Boom. Ha ha ha. in that. Yes, he was that third. He was that third character.
You're right.
And
I didn't remember
know
that.
because I looked it up. And so anyway, some lovely, lovely young new people.
Right.
I'm sure we're going to hear more.
If you
from
like
them.
the Percy Jackson books, you will certainly enjoy this musical. I'm almost finished with The Lightning Thief. I would rate it below Harry Potter, but I think above Artemis Fowl.
You said it was Harry Potter light when we were talking before, didn't you? So
I said
think you
no.
said
well,
that.
no, I said that when we were discussing it.
Oh, okay, all right.
And
yeah.
and to an extent, it is. Harry Potter is excellent. This is not as good, but it's still a very enjoyable read.
Well, there's a Harry Potter musical coming, and it's going to be a big splashing.
Well, no, there's a Harry Potter play coming.
That's what I meant. It's not a musical?
It's not a musical.
Oh, okay. Because what I was going to say is this is a little
Right.
off-Broadway show.
Right.
And it did
so
very
your
well.
conclusion, Leslie?
I, again, didn't know what to expect, and I would come away with a 3.5.
I would say 3.5 too,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
All right, let's get to the play that we have both been itching to talk about all night, and that is The Glass Menagerie. The Glass Menagerie seems to pop up on Broadway every so often. It was here with
This
Cherry
one's
Jones
only
a couple of years ago.
Cherry Jones. yeah.
And I was lukewarm to this one. This is a very unconventional version of it, mainly because Laura, the daughter, the shy daughter, who has a limp. They won't say cripple. She has a limp, and maybe even not that much of it, is in a wheelchair. And it is played, she is played by Madison Ferris, whom my daughter actually remembered from Muhlenberg, although they were not friends, or they didn't really know each other. And she is an actually crippled actress.
She has multiple sclerosis.
Right. And so you see her in her wheelchair, and it changes a lot of things.
Well, it's not just that you see her in a wheelchair. That would be one thing. But this young woman moves by putting her hands and her feet on the floor at the
Right.
same time and sort of like worming her way to wherever
Right.
she's going. It's so disconcerting. It took me out of the play. I think it's brilliant that they tried to give this young person a chance. At the same time, it took me out of the play every time she was doing that.
It did not do that
Okay,
to
well.
me. The only problem I had with this is that Laura is supposed to be painfully shy.
Yes.
And this woman does not strike
She
me
is
as shy. She strikes me as resound. And you see, she
Resilient.
goes out resilient. This place takes place in the 1930s. They didn't have handicapped accessible
No.
back then. And she goes out in her wheelchair. And I'm thinking, why does a woman who has this strength, or a girl who has this strength, get flustered by a secretarial
Well, and
class?
she doesn't show that. She doesn't play it as a shy girl
Right?
either.
No,
She's
she does
not
not.
shy in this
She's
at all.
resigned. She says,
Right.
it's not going to happen. Sally Field, who I have loved for many years, I watched her as the Flying Nun. Sorry, Sally, I did. And her Amanda is also very different. This is not as an optimistic Amanda. Amanda is always trying to put a positive spin. She's trying to, yes, things are one, and she knows things are bad, and she says that, but she's always trying to look beyond that. The sun will come out tomorrow. Here, that is much less the case. She's more resigned and depressed. In fact, at the end of the play, the blow out your candles Laura scene.
Well, that was so bizarre.
Instead of Amanda comforting Laura, Laura is comforting Amanda. And the interesting thing is...
And Tom puts out, with a water bottle, he puts out, she doesn't blow
Actually,
out her
with wine.
candles at all.
Well, no,
I thought
she
it was
refuses
water.
to blow. She's not letting Tom get away with it.
Yeah.
She refuses
Now,
to blow.
Tom is
And,
played
wait,
by-
let me just.
Sorry.
And I thought about it, and if you think about Amanda's life, it kind of reflects Sally Field's acting career. When she says she entertained 17 gentlemen callers, you could see Gidget doing that, although probably with not as much pose as Amanda. And if we saw the picture of her husband who deserted the family, it would, of course, be Burt Reynolds from Smokey and the Bandit. But she has the determination of her characters from Places in the Heart.
I see. Okay, well, okay. Fine, all right.
Yeah.
Finn Wittrock, whom we saw just now in Othello, who played Rodrigo in Othello,
Right.
takes on the role of the
Right.
gentleman caller. The most intriguing piece of casting, of course, is Joe Mantello.
Well, before you mention Mantello, Finn, they bring him out at the beginning just to show him off, so to speak, which is unusual.
Yeah.
And he looks like a Ken doll. But when he actually has his scenes, he puts a lot more substance into that.
He happens to be a very handsome young man, and so
He is.
But
Joe Mantello.
Joe Mantello plays Tom, and Joe Mantello is in his mid-40s, and
At least.
so he is, and so what happens is you suddenly realize that this really is a memory play, that this is an older man who breaks the fourth wall and goes back into it and plays himself. And I think it's I thought, because I think Joe can do anything.
I agree.
I think that it actually works very, very well.
It works beautifully. And what I find interesting about his performance, desperation. He loves his mother.
Yes.
He's trying. But what child has not said, including mine, has not said, "You're driving me crazy"? And he doesn't want to hurt her. He doesn't want to. He just knows he has to get away. It's so desperate. And but it's a very subdued, a lot more subtle. Doesn't have an accent like in the last productions.
There are no accents in this from anybody.
And that works fine.
It's a non-specific time period. She's wearing 50s clothes or maybe contemporary
and they
clothes.
have the dial telephone is 50s or 60s, the typewriter that
and Madison Ferris is in pants, which she wouldn't have been. I mean, the girl wouldn't have been in pants. Sam Gold is the director, and what he did was he took away all the furniture. It's whatever is necessary is what's on the stage.
Right.
It's
a very unconventional
show.
Down
is the word for that part of it.
Except
so some things work.
But to an extent it worked. To a large extent it works.
What it did was it let you hear the poetry of the language. It lets you hear. I think this is Tennessee Williams' best play. I've directed this play. I've been in this play. I love this play.
Right.
It's not the most. He thought it was a different play than what he wrote. It says so in his notes.
Right.
But when you listen to it, it's the most natural and most real play of all of his plays. And yet it's filled with poetry and whatnot.
Yes.
It's a brilliant piece of work.
And that comes out in this production as far as I'm concerned.
But in spite of a lot
Yes.
things, I think, not because of certain
But I
things.
liked it much better than the more recent, than the previous
the Evil Van Hova? Yeah, well,
with Cherry
when
Jones.
Laura came up out of the couch, yes. I did like Cherry Jones. I did like what she did, but I did feel that Sally Field did show that Amanda is not an evil person, that she's a mother and she's concerned and she wants something for her children. I did feel that came across. So, what would you give this?
I agree, and I like Sally Field's performance very much, even though her Laura is a much more weather-beaten.
Her Amanda, excuse
me.
Okay.
Well, she could have played Laura when she was younger, certainly. Yeah. Her Amanda is much more weather-beaten than we are used to, but at one point when the gentleman caller is coming, she comes out, she lets her hair down, she's in her old dress, and we see what Amanda would have been, and we remember what Sally was, and everybody applauds her for doing that. I will give this 4 playbills, and I will say to Joe Mantello, Joe, it's a good thing you're such a good director because we're sacrificing a lot not having you around as an actor.
It's true. And Joe, I wish you had directed Charlie and the Chocolate Factory because maybe it was, what he did with Wicked is what should have been done with Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I'll say that. And then I will give this 3 nothing, just 3.
And that is our show for tonight. When you go to the theater, look for Leslie and me, us too.
On the aisle.
Barely tolerated spinsters living off the grudging patronage of sister's husband or brother's wife, stuck away in some little mouse trap of a room, encouraged by one in-law to visit another. Little bird-like women without any nest, eating the crust of humility all of their lives.